Hey, what's up, Canada and beyond? It is Friday, April 12th, 2024, and we're going to get right into things here in just a minute. But first of all, for anybody that's not aware, the guest, our regular here, Mr. Bryce Wade, is joining us again today for Bankers, Bandits, Bullion, and Bucks with Bryce. And where you actually connect with Bryce is go to the whatsupcanada.org website and you will see links and tabs and those kinds of things. Click on one of those and you will page will come up for you to book an appointment, and you will get to talk to the guys one on one over at New World Precious Metals. And Bryce, why should people be getting off of the couch and doing that sooner rather than later? I think it's going to be a great place to start every week, because every week people should be more and more quick at getting off of the couch and going and getting some silver and gold.
Definitely. So, if you want, I can just share my screen here. I can show you in very visual detail why you should do this.
You can
So,
pull it up from your side there, and
yeah,
pop it on.
right there. So in the last couple weeks, we've seen a massive uptick in the price of gold. So this is, or sorry, silver. So this is from April 1st. Basically, you have right down here, and this has been kind of the running average for the last few years, really. I mean, no, I shouldn't say few years because it's gone up since then, but this has been the kind of the the normal, the roughly the normal. So between like 22 to 24 has been the last normal for the last little bit, and then it spiked all the way up to 28.50. Was actually up to 29, spiked this morning, and then it fell back down a little bit. So it ended at about 28.50 today, but that's basically a 20% increase, more or less, and that is very, very significant. And if you can see up here at the top right here, so in the last 30 days, it's gone up 15%. In the last 6 months, it's 25%. 1 year, there's been a dip. And that's why I was saying the 25 or whatever was the normal, but in the 5 years, it's almost doubled, and that's really significant. And we've seen the same thing in gold.
If I'm not mistaken, gold hit an all-time high this week.
I mean, it's hitting all time highs every week now. So, the what's his face? The other guy that was on Canadian Prepper the other day, I can't remember his name, but he basically predicted that gold would bottom out at 28.50 because it was on a decline for a little bit after it hit its high, and then it bounced up off of that. And since that time, which was I think about 6 months ago, it's now gone up $500, which is about 25%, and that for gold is historic. And to give people some context for that, and I can't remember if I've said this already, so apologies if I have. But in 1971, when the U.S. got off the gold standard in 1971, they they inflated the price so much of the dollar, and they used the petrodollar to basically backstop it because it wasn't connected with gold anymore. But gold went from I can't remember the exact number, but it basically 10x'd over 10 years. And now we've essentially doubled or went up about 100% in 7 years, 6, 7 years in gold.
And that rate is increasing exponentially by the week at this point. And there's the reason I kind of wanted to start this off each week with kind of looking at what gold is doing, because it's a red flag barometer of what's going on around the world. And for the folks that are out there, this screen that Bryce is sharing here right now, I've put a link in the chat. This is a living board, guys. It's a Miro board. You can go and you can access everything that's on there. You can read the links, watch the videos, add comments, get engaged, get involved in the community. And the idea for part of this is so that people can learn and get comfortable using other tools that they're going to need to, or that can help them organizing in the communities and doing the things that y'all are doing everywhere. This is just another way that we can, facilitate information transfer and knowledge transfer. And this board lives. Bryce is putting stuff up throughout the week, and you guys can go in there and engage, comment, and leave your two bits.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna try
Mm.
and interact with this as much as possible, and I'm gonna keep this as a living document that anybody can have access to. You can come and grab information. So the stuff that I base what I'm telling you you about and how I see the world and why, I'll post a lot of what I see. So think of what you do on the internet for a second, right? Everybody does this, so this is why I'm using this as an example. So think of you as an eye, right? Just one eye, and whenever you go to a website, you essentially take a picture of that because that's what you put in your mind. This is a way of saving that picture that you take and being able to give that information. I saw this over here, click, I'm putting it over here. Now I can easily share that with other people. And this is really one of the advantages of this process is the ability to quickly share information that's deep. So like it just as an example here, right? I have this link here, right? That's to that China cancels a whole bunch of wheat imports from the US. I can talk about that later. But here's the important information. Now, what does this actually mean? That requires a little bit of reading into it. But I can add that if somebody asks the question, what does this mean for me? Well, I can reply to that, right? And the reason that I wanted to show everybody this is how we organize ourselves and information is really, really important to being able to make good decisions about what's coming and what we need to do about it, right? So I want to use this system as much as possible to be able to share stuff with people and interact with people in a way that's easy, simple, and fast. And that's what this really allows me to do.
That's what people should be getting out of this. This allows them to do that as well. People can have access to this at their discretion, their disposal, whatever time frame they're working at or doing, and you can add to it as well. We need to make the education 7 days a week, not just one day a week. We'll do the best we can here to kind of bridge some of the subject matters and things that we feel they or can help with. But the more feedback and interaction and engagement we get with you guys on these things here too, the better we can help you guys answer questions and solve problems. I did. This was a good comment that I saw coming up here from Don Record Man. So the confidence in the fiat currency is rapidly decreasing. I think that is 100% nailed it point. Your thoughts on that, Bryce?
Yeah, it very much is, and for a variety of reasons. And so I this is another reason that I do this because I don't always have everything that I can show you right away. So there was a post that came out sometime this week, is a couple days ago, I think, that basically showed what all the big money is doing, and they're not buying U.S. Treasuries anymore. And the thing that underpins the entire financial system is essentially U.S. Treasuries, right? Because everything is connected to the U.S. dollar, all of the U.S. dollars are connected to all the big banks. They're all connected to the financial to the central bank or the Fed, and the treasuries are the grease the grease that wheels everything. You know what I mean? And if people stop buying those treasuries, that makes a liquidity problem. And right now, the banks are stopping lending because they're essentially insolvent. I think about a month ago, I talked about there was the funding vehicle that was essentially saving banks because they had liquidity problems and they didn't have to sell off assets. They were using this funding vehicle. Well, that ended on March 11th, and I've been waiting to see what's going to be the repercussions of the consequences for that. And this is one of those consequences, is that now there's a lack of liquidity in the market. So a couple of years ago we had a liquidity crisis because banks weren't lending, and there was the overnight lending limit, and there was a whole bunch of bullshit that was happening, right? But ultimately what this means is if you don't have debt to grease the system of a debt-based system, it's like playing musical chairs and you run out of chairs. So because there's no velocity in money anymore, right? Which is what keeps the economy moving, is that money's moving around, right? And now that this is not going to be happening, this is going to have a knock-on effect of a whole bunch of different other things. And one of them is a collapse of US banks for a variety of reasons. And this is a big thing that's happening right now that I've been talking about for like 6 months at the very least, is that the commercial real estate, there's $1 trillion of commercial real estate that's up for renewal this year. And once it is not renewed because it's too expensive, it's not worth what the face value of it is. All of that goes to essentially local and regional banks, which have about 70% of those commercial real estate debts, and they all collapse. So that's coming.
And there's so much of that, and there's a bunch of really great comments here uh, in the chat here today. So there's another one from Don that states are dumping their currency reserves and buying commodities with it. That is exactly what's happening. They're watching what the international governments are doing. International governments are doing, and those states that are more interested in their state than in the state of Joe Biden are doing exactly that. We're seeing that happening more and more and more. And for me, we just before the show we were talking, and for me, my red flag daily barometer is watching what's going on with BRICS. And every single day almost there's more uh, countries that are getting involved with BRICS, and it's gotten to the point where the U.S. is being forced to react, not just pretend that it's not going on, not to just denounce us for talking about it going on. This has real world implications that, given the the historical tenure of the American government and where they see high finance and industry. What are you making of this? And I guess my first question should be, me being the uneducated hillbilly that I am, is that a fair barometer to gauge that things are going south faster than they're coming to back to normal?
Absolutely. You can there was this idea over the pandemic that there was like, hey, we'll eventually get back to the new normal. Just take normal out of your vocabulary because no such thing anymore. The new normal is basically war and chaos. That's what's happening. That's what they planned. That's what they want, and that's what's going to happen. And I could sit here all day for a couple hours beyond what we already do and talk to you about the data and the examples of us going to war. So let me make this abundantly clear to everybody: we are at war. And you are on the front line because this war is against all of us. Every single person on this planet is at war now, and it's a war for survival. There are people on this planet that want you dead or enslaved. I'm not among them, obviously, because I want you to live and have a good family. But if we're going to survive this and we're going to like save our civilization more or less, you and I and we have to get organized to the point where they can't come and just destroy us. Can we prevent a nuclear war? Probably not, right? But what we can do is prepare for the worst case scenario that is absolutely what is coming, right? Because they have told us relentlessly, repeatedly, consistently, I want all of your stuff and you got to give it to me. Well, that's an act of war.
I think Canadians are finally starting to clue into the reality of, you will own nothing, you will be happy, and you will eat the bugs, as it's being ordained from Geneva. But that is not the case. But to highlight, these things about protecting ourselves and being on the front line. This is commodities is the front line of the financial
Yeah,
portion of that war. And another comment here saying that silver is positioned to skyrocket supply and demand, and that is 100%
100%.
on point with that. And this is why it's so critical for us to have these discussions, because honestly, to be frank, 90% of the people watching this don't have the capacity to go and buy a big chunk of gold at today's day and age. Karen, just for your information there, this I'm dropping a link in the chat right now so that you guys can click on the link to find Bryce and the New World Precious Metals guys. But there's other guys out there, and yes, we're working together, but don't let this be the determining factor of so whether you get off the couch and go and do something. There's other suppliers out there. New World Precious Metals kind of tends to deal more so in larger volumes, helping people protect their portfolios, their investments, their assets, those kinds of things through precious metals. But gold, silver, bull, if you want to just go and pick up a couple of coins a week, go
Yeah.
there, do that now. It's not going to get cheaper next week.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going to be more. Uh, Basically, everything that you can think of is going to get more expensive from here on out, unless there's a devaluation in our currency. And I'll probably have to dig deeper into that in a future show, but I'll just give you a very brief overview now. Is the inflation consistently creeps prices up, right? Deflation happens, and this is happening in China right now when nobody can sell anything, so they continue to drop prices and sometimes below the cost of the thing, whatever it is, to create just to keep things running, and that's what's happening in China right now. So there's a whole bunch of bad stuff that happens with that because we've printed so much money that everything has been inflated. But if we have to deflate the price of everything, and now we can't make some of that money back, all of that money has been printed into existence that now it's gone. It's literally just taken out of existence, essentially, in a couple of different ways. That's an oversimplification of what it is. But just to generally understand it, inflation pushes everything up to beyond what it is worth, and deflation pushes it below what it's worth. In either direction, it's bad for us, and this is kind of a benefit and a design of the system where that we get screwed out of all of our assets.
I think the perfect example for that is the EV, electric vehicle industry. They were selling below cost for so long, they have bankrupted and broken themselves, and now they're all going to go out of business. And that essentially is kind of what they're doing to across the board. And this, we don't pay attention to it when we think, oh, it's $100,000 vehicle. It's not in anything I was going to be looking at anyways. It doesn't matter to me. Well, when they starts to apply that same principle to solve the problems rather than actually fix problems, that's kind of where we're at here now with everything else. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give you a perfect example of this is that the price of oil, okay? Our modern civilization, modern with using that term loosely, is basically predicated on a very simple principle that we get cheap energy. None of our systems work if we don't have cheap energy, and here's why. Every single thing you touch, every single thing you own, every single thing you eat is created, moved, processed, everything by fossil fuels, oil specifically, gas by and diesel by extension, right? So if you have to basically 10x, double, triple, whatever they increase, if you increase that cost of moving anything too far, everything that's related to it breaks, and everything is related to transportation because nothing is local anymore, right? We used to be a completely self-sufficient country. We didn't need anybody from anywhere. We were fine, right? Now we're in a globalized economy where everything is connected. So supply chains are all over the planet now, right? If you can't move things cheaply, you don't get them, right? Because or you don't have to pay or you don't pay for them. But and this is why I always go back to food. Food is created and food is managed and food is processed and food is moved by truck, by tractor, by ship, right? If those things don't move, somebody dies, right? And it's that simple, right? And so what's happening is that we don't have a cheap enough energy anymore to validate the cost of the production of our system, right? So when you have very complex systems, so think of a spider's web, right? If you take out a couple pieces along the spider web, it's fine because it's a web, right? But if you take out the exterior portions that connect it to whatever, that spider web is gone. It just disappears because it falls, right? And so energy, food, what's another one? Energy, food, shelter, which is why rents are so high, right? There's a couple of these core systems that are intrinsic and essential to our civilization functioning. Energy is one of them. Shelter is one of them. There's kind of these basic things. Currency is another one, so you can say that the banking system is kind of part of that too. But if you take out any of these pieces, the whole thing collapses because they're built on each other, right? And why I keep going back to food and gold for this reason is that when it becomes necessary that you can only do and use and communicate and deal with people in your local community, nothing outside of your local community matters anymore because it's do you have enough resources in your community under your control that's going to keep you alive and keep you clothed and keep you warm, right? If you live in the north of Alberta, you don't give a shit what's happening on the other side of the planet. You care about I'm able to keep myself alive and have enough energy and food so I don't die. Does it matter what's happening with Iran and Iraq? No, or Israel. I mean, who cares, right? Even though it matters intrinsically, right, to our survival, it doesn't matter to you now, right? And what's happening is they're breaking all of these systems intentionally.
I think we have to really take a good hard look at within our own our own environment locally, individually, right it from the household on up, and realize and accept and understand that our government, our governance, our management teams at any level, not a single one of them has an actual clue about how to deal with emergency or what is actually and truly essential. By that, you only have to look at what happened during with the COVID nonsense, where seeds were cordoned off. You couldn't buy stuff, plant for your garden, or grow your own food. That's not essential. No, 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 no. But to go and line up at Costco, that is essential. But anything that you could do to avoid forcing your families or yourself to go to these quote unquote government deemed essential establishments, that was just, so people need to really readjust what is really essential, because what's it going to look like if or when things go sideways. And nobody wants to be right about things going sideways, but I hate to say it, folks, after 5 years, my track record of what's going sideways is way better than what my track record is wrong on. And this is, nobody ever wants to be right. Nobody does this to be right. We do this to try and rattle some brains loose somewhere, to just look at things a little bit differently and understand, we think about war in the wrong context. The actual evolution of the fighting of war is evolved. It's not storming the beaches of Normandy anymore. And they are waging an economic war, a supply chain war on us. And we're losing because our management teams are either in on it or completely stupid.
Yeah.
No in between.
No, it really isn't, right? And this is why I am so determined to at least be loud about the hard reality that the morons that are running our government and a lot of our systems need to be removed immediately. Like if you are working against the people of Canada or the government, or not the government, the people of any community that you're supposed to be responsible for, and you're working against them, well, there's a word for that. I won't use it here, but you know what I mean. And to that point, and I think you raise a good point, because what you and us now need to prepare for is pandemic number 2, because they have already said that the bird flu is going to be the next thing. They've been talking about it for years now. Oh, we got the WHO treaty coming here in a month, right? They are preparing for this, and I'm sharing my screen right now because I think this is really important to see. Is that Trudeau this week put out the budget, and he has said specifically that he is now going to be able to use the military to do lockdowns. So
Yeah.
that should be a blaring warning sign for everybody that watches this, that your time being a free citizen is now numbered. Because when that happens, he's going to throw down the hammer and be like, oh, it's an emergency. Lock everybody down, put everybody under lock and key, and have the guards with guns making sure they don't go anywhere, right? All of these policies, all of the things that he's been doing has been building up to this ability to go full dictator. And now he's got the legal authority to do so without the EMA.
And people need to realize, make no mistake, this is coming. It is on its way here in the United States. They are already enforcing emergency measures on food producers and ranchers, and they will shut down our beef and food supply through whatever means that they feel that they can. And now, granted, yes, these are mostly, at this point so far, farms and ranches that are within the system, are compliant to the system. And most people don't realize that most of these ranchers, they don't actually own the beef, so they only do with the beef what they're told to do with the beef. And if they're told to put them all down and bury them and not sell any of it, that is exactly what they're going to do. So this is where, all those years of running around the country telling people to find alternative supply locally, this was ultimately what we saw coming back then already. So it's
Yeah.
happening. And
It is, and it's happening in conjunction with a whole bunch of other really bad things, right? So I brought this up because this is important. So right before 2007, and basically all of the other major inflation problems that we've seen, after the inflation kicked up, we always saw an uptick in, pardon me, mortgage delinquencies, bankruptcies, and people and unemployment going up, right? And so we've brought in millions of immigrants from all across the planet, right, which always depresses wages because there's more people available, especially for lower end jobs. We've got a massive uptick in bankruptcies for the last couple of years because the pandemic destroyed everything intentionally. And now we've got the delinquencies and mortgages, so people can't afford to pay for their own house, right? And what we're going to see now, and you can take this one to the bank because I know it's coming, is that now people are going to start selling assets to make ends meet, right? That means that all of the assets that people have now, you're going to start selling. And the biggest one that most people have is their house, right? So if they had a house, they're like, hey, well, it's worth $500,000 and I've only got, 200 grand on it or whatever, sell it for 300 and I make 100 grand and they get out. But what that does is pushes the prices of everything else down because now it's so the way that real estate works is even if you have 95% of all units that are nobody's touching, nobody's moving, you have this 5% of transactions at the very periphery that are dictating the price for everything else, because once you have a transaction for an equivalent, that lowers the or raises the equivalent of everything else in that asset class, right? So when you have these people that are desperate, even if 80% of people are fine, everybody else is like, hey, I got to get out of here, I need this money. Now it pushes down the values for everybody else, and this is what's happening in China, right? And so the prices in China, because they have so much of an oversupply, in some places it's dropped more than 50%, 70% in some places, and it's still falling, right? And so the economy of China has absolutely cratered, right? And it still really hasn't hit the global market, but it will. And one of the things that is eventually going to happen is it's going to force selling in the US and all over the world for a variety of reasons. But what happens in that time is that all of the assets that are connected to your house. So if you had $1 million in equity and you had $500,000 and a $500,000 delta or difference in the value that you had, and you use some of that equity to back up a car payment, or you leveraged it and invested it somewhere. If the value of your house drops, now you can't get any money from it. Right now, the money that you owe on the house and the value of the house is lower. That destroys your net worth. It destroys your net worth and the ability to leverage debt in the way that we've been doing it for decades.
so, a comment come up here about the 30-year mortgage offer on the table here. Now, to me, seeing what I'm seeing, this is like a Venus flytrap. That's what I see this announcement as, suckering people into extended mortgages, dropping what is they're qualifying, that it's going to take them to get into it, and 6 months from now they'll be foreclosed on, and they won't have anything, and they'll be ruined.
Yeah, potentially, and this especially happens when people lose their job, because the number one asset most people have is their income, and their income is connected to a job. Typically, their second asset is usually their house, right? But that cash flow comes from that job. So if companies are downsizing, which they are, and there's less people buying stuff because they have less money, which there is, and people are losing their houses and selling their assets, which they are, what does that tell you? That's a recession, and a very bad recession, and that's what's happening, right? So we're literally at the cusp now, and I've been saying this for years, but nobody's been listening to me because I've been essentially a nobody. But now this is actually happening now, and what I'm telling you is that when all of these things start to coalesce and affect the market at the same time, we are looking at a historic collapse in the level of civilization and the quality of life that we've enjoyed for basically my entire lifetime, and probably yours as well.
I don't think it's a because I just don't buy coincidence ever.
Neither do I.
It's kind of counterintuitive to my job, uh, but when I hear him putting announcing 600 million for new housing programs, but 1.6 billion for AI development. that sends chills down my spine, because the AI development is what he needs to rule us. And so the fact that he's spending, giving double for to develop tools to control us, and then he is for people to house themselves, is kind of to me, one of those, fireworks in the sky saying, "Uh-oh, they're it's crunch time for those guys and what they want to do." I mean, it's just the speed at which they have been dumping these things, these announcements, these new motions, acts, laws, 63, 370, all of them. There is not one of them that they have announced or have been working on the last several months that doesn't spell the end of everything that we know in Canada.
Hmm. Yeah, it's true.
So yeah, no, I think that you know. I mean, everybody thinks that we need to get Trudeau out. I'm not convinced that getting Polyev in changes anything.
It
Uh,
doesn't unless he comes in with changes to the system. And this is kind of what I advocate for and why I joined the Conservative Party. So if nobody knows, I joined the Conservative Party, and this is why I've been fairly centrist and anti any party my whole life. But at the end of the day, you got to look at history, right? A lot of what I believe now and why I believe it comes from some of it comes from the wisdom of the ancients, right? We got to the place that we got to because people fought for their rights and for their ability to live their life in the way that they want. That is one of the if there's anything that I can put down as the epitome of what it means to live in the Western world and a citizen of the West, is that we have the ability and the right to try and make our lives better without the government getting in the way and everybody stealing shit from us, right? And that is the epitome in my mind of what it means to be a free citizen, is that you have the ability and responsibility to fight for what you believe in, right? And I'm not going to accept that there's absolutely nothing that we can do. I got a party registration, so I can scream at somebody. I'm like, "Hey, idiot! You should be doing this." Right? And this is why. And I can say it because I stood up and said, "I am somebody that believes this thing, even if I don't agree with everything that they believe and everything that they do." Because I don't. I 100% believe that they're corrupt to some degree. Klaus Schwab has said he's infected all of the cabinet, so there's no doubt in my mind that there's idiots in the Conservative Party as well. But the point that I'm making is that if you stay silent, you get nothing. If you do nothing, you get nothing. You have to stand up and say something. And somebody, and I don't mind being first. This is one of the things I learned a long time ago. I don't mind being the first person to say something, but there has to be other people that say, "Hey, that guy's got some stuff. He's saying some stuff that I like, or she's saying some stuff that I like. I agree. Let's do something together." But somebody always has to be first.
there's a was taking part in a very interesting conversation this morning, but want to get to this first here.
I was going to pull that one
Question.
up. Yeah, actually.
Yeah. I think this is a question a lot of people are asking themselves, and then we'll circle back,
Sure.
to the what we can do situation.
So the short answer here is it depends on how much the debt is and what the debt is on. If it's on a car, who cares? If if they repo the car, who cares, right? But if it's something on a house, they're gonna come after people for their debt, for their mortgage debt. But mortgage debt is among the lowest interest rate that you can get. I mean, obviously it's a lot higher now, so it depends on when that debt was, right? So if you got a 30-year mortgage when it was at like 0%, you are laughing right now. But if you have to redo your mortgage in a couple of years at even higher rates, yeah, that sucks. So it depends on how much it is and how much of your asset total it takes. So let's say that you had $100,000 in debt and you had a total of 120 grand that leaves you, 20%, 20 grand to still do something with. Yeah, maybe that would be okay, and then you're debt free. You don't have to worry about it. But that you still have to. That still means though that you have the rest of that 20 grand to do whatever else you need to do. And so the reason that I always talk about gold and silver is that it's going up in value compared to everything else. So commodities, food, all that sort of stuff is more important than almost everything else at this point, because you got to remember, currency, houses, none of this stuff keeps you alive, right? And this is why I always go back to food first. Number one, if you don't have enough food in your family, in your possession, to keep you and your family alive for like the next year, and I'm planning for like a couple years now. I've basically got enough food for a year. I need 2 or 3 years now, right? And because we don't know how bad it's going to get, but if we go full war, which I personally think we will, you don't know, are farmers going to be farming? Are you going to be able to go to the store? If it's bombed out, you're not buying food there, right? So it really depends on what is your ultimate goal. Where is your ultimate goal? Because ultimately, after the if the system collapses, they're going to come after for people, but they still have to go and do that. You still have the asset if you're living in it, right? Where you sit there with your shotgun or whatever, come and take it, bro. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's going to get to the point where if you have the ability to get yourself clear of that debt, you might want to think about something to think about is a year from now, that $1,000 payment is going to be $2,000 of what it is today, just based on inflation, and the interest. Is the numbers might not change on the agreement, but the real world cost of that is going to be is not going to get any cheaper. And as it comes down to it, if the banks or anybody has a claim over anything that you want, they're not going to. You might have a $10,000 car that you owe $500 on it, but if they want their $500 and you haven't got it, they're going to take your $10,000 car and go and get $500 out of it. That's kind of the situation people are going to be facing on when it comes to debt, and anything left in paper money isn't going to be worth a lot. When people are hungry, you can have a wheelbarrow full of $100 bills and a can of tuna. They'll take that can of tuna. That's where the
Yeah,
value is going to be.
exactly. And let me answer this a slightly different way. So, like, there's an old saying: gold is the currency of kings, silver is the currency of artisans, and debt is the currency of slaves, right? But the way that our system works is it was asset backed debt, right? So your home or whatever or whatever the asset is backed by that physical asset. So they're going to say, "Hey, give us the rest of our money, or we're taking the asset," right? That might be what, and this kind of goes back to the great taking. That might be one of the things that they're going to do, right? But if you hold gold and silver, and this is why I keep telling people this, is if that value of that precious metals skyrockets and the value of that asset goes down. Just simple math, right? Let's say you bought a house for $1 million in Vancouver here, but it drops by $500,000. Now you owe $800,000 or something like that. But the value of gold doubles, triples, 10x's, whatever, and you've got 10 of them. Now you're 10x of gold, that you've 10x the value of gold. You can use some of that to pay off the debt. Right. And I think I think personally that this is what they're going to try and do with all of the gold that the central banks are buying, is that they're hoarding it right now so that they're going to essentially buy out the debt with the inflated value of gold and say, hey, we're going to connect the central bank digital currency to gold, and it's going to be a hard asset that's worth $100,000, $50,000, whatever US dollars, and then change that as an intermediary, or sorry, connect it as a ratio, right? Because that's what they did in Germany. That's what they've done in the past. Is that when they release a new currency, they give a ratio from this is the old currency to this is the new currency. When they did it in Germany, it was 100 trillion to 1. That's how absurd that is. 100 trillion to 1, bro. Right.
Yeah.
And so if they do that with gold, so what is gold worth in the old one and what is gold worth in the new one? Gold's still worth gold. Gold is the real currency, the real value. Right. And so that was the original intermediary back in the day. It's going to be the intermediary again, other than the central bank digital currency. Right. So to answer that question one more time, I think it's better that you get the hard asset if you can, if it's a small enough money, if it's a small enough amount that you get the asset free and clear, that's great. Especially if it's a house. If you own that house free and clear, it's yours. Then you just have to worry about protecting it and making sure you can live at it. That's a separate conversation, but at least you own it and the government can't come and take it from you because of debt. So is it better to have the asset free and clear than not? Yes. But it's more important that you have the assets that are going to keep you alive rather than just owning an asset that's not going to do shit for you other than house you. You know what I mean?
And I'm seeing some comments in the chat here. People, they bought gold at $800 an ounce, and now it's at basically 3,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same principle to bear in mind as we're moving forward. Is if fiat currency becomes worth less and less and less and less, that means your metals are going to cost twice as much to replace or to purchase,
Yeah.
but further down the road they're going to be worth exponentially more and more and more. And you said one other word there that I think it's key, a key indicator for people to realize. And the banks and the countries are, like you said, they're hoarding gold.
Yeah.
And when they've got all of the gold and it is priced beyond, $10,000 an ounce, we ain't getting any.
Yeah.
So I think this is where, silver is going to skyrocket faster and faster and faster and faster. And I'm seeing other people talk about this too, that, as the demand, because I can think about going and buying an ounce of silver. I can't think about going and buying an ounce of gold. There's billions of people like me that would think about going and buying an ounce of silver that can't buy an ounce of gold. So this is going to create a run, I think, on the silver as this picks up and speeds up. That's going to drive silver. It's going to be the greatest income gain versus buying gold, I believe.
This is so. I actually told this story yesterday. So when I was a kid, I think I was about like 7 or 8 or 9, maybe even 10. I ran over to my mom because I was on the internet since I was a kid. I'm the first generation of growing up on the internet, and I ran to my mom and I'm like, "Mom, you gotta stop everything, sell everything, invest in Google." And I'm like 8 or whatever I was, and she looked at me like, "Yeah, whatever, kid, shut up." But at that time, it's worth like a couple bucks. Like, what would like a $10,000 investment in Google been worth now? Like compared to then, you're talking about like orders of magnitude of money. It's a generational opportunity that was missed if you missed it, right? So there was Tesla, there was Amazon, there was Google, there was Bitcoin. Now there's silver. This is silver and gold. It's silver and gold, but silver specifically, I think personally, this is one of the biggest generational opportunities of my lifetime. It probably supersedes all of the other one, and the reason being is that because all of those other things that I just mentioned are still just a company, and you could say that the Bitcoin is a currency if you think of it that way, but I don't, because of the ability for it to be traded as an actual use case for intermediary of product or services, right? The market only works for Bitcoin if somebody else has Bitcoin, right? But silver and gold are currency. It is a store of value. So the whole idea of a forex trade is that that currency is worth that and this currency is worth that, and they switch a little bit and you make a little bit of money in between. Well, this is the biggest difference in probably all of human history, potentially, that you're going to buy an asset and it 10, 20, 30 x's or whatever it's going to do. I'm not saying it's going to do that, but historically we've seen about a 10x from the low point to the high point when gold and silver really get going. And like I said earlier, we've already doubled. We're already at a double from the low point.
Well, wars were fought over tulip bulbs that at one point in time were worth
Yeah,
more than gold. So I think
ridiculous.
that this is, definitely something that, I mean, it's not rocket science. Nothing we're talking about here is hidden or secret or conspiracy. This is just, reading the signs and being aware of them that are going on there. There's a really great comment here, or question that I can't touch. So I'll put it up for you. So,
Uh,
and they're talking about holding of gold, and this is something, one of the reasons that when I first started working with New World Precious Metals is because you guys actually vault materials. When banks sell you gold, they're only giving you a marker. That's it. And if everybody comes and calls their markers at the same time, guess what? You're shit out of luck. So tangible matters. That's the only thing I can contribute to that question.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that, and then answer the question specifically. Is that you want to make sure that if you're storing any precious metals that you have, do not put it in a safety deposit box. And here's why: a bank bail in gives all of the assets in the bank the ability to seize assets, so they can replace your safety deposit box. Anything that's in the bank, they can take. Is basically what it boils down to. So if you want to hold precious metals, don't put them in a safety deposit box. Don't put them in the bank. Hold them at home safely in your own vault, safe, whatever. Bury them. put them in an actual vault like like IDS and Brinks, and I'll answer this question as an addendum to that. But you can't keep them in the bank, and they're not as liquid if you hold them at home because you still have to have paperwork. But that's the best thing to do to maximize the amount of control you have over them. The most liquid thing that you can do is in the bank because you can sell to the wholesaler. So to this question, this question specifically is about, can I still get my gold if things go sideways? Yes, but if we get hit by an EMP, no. Right, that's kind of what it boils down to, right? So you have the ability to get your precious metals out of Brinks and IDS and the other banking vaults that we use as well, up until everything collapses completely, right? So I still suggest people, and I'm doing this myself. I have money invested in our vaulting, our wholesale program because it's the best deal. It's the best option all around. It just has slightly less control than you holding it in your hand. But if I need money, if I want to put my investment into something else, or I need some of it, or I want to transfer it, it's like I leveraged mine because I know things are going up right now. I haven't even looked, but I know it's up significantly right now, and that's why I put it in there. But to his last part of that question, what if TFSA is in the precious metals out of bank? You can still, even the registered accounts um, that are like, so there's a lot of people that talk to us because of registered accounts that you can back by gold and silver. We could do corporate accounts as well, just so anybody knows. But those are still sitting in a Brinks or an IDS vault, and you can get it sent to you at any time. They'll just hold some back for taxes, but they can still send it to you, right? So if you really feel that, hey, things are going sideways, like I don't trust anybody anymore, the D-Day is coming or whatever, you can call them up and be like, yo, send me my stuff, right? And they will start that process. Now I don't know what it is for Brinks, but our process is about a couple days, right? So if you call us up and you're like, hey, I want my assets, it'll usually be a couple days, up to about a week, but you can still get it, right? And so this is why I suggest is that if you're going to do something like this, that you know what you're trying to achieve, right? Because if you don't trust anybody for anything and you're like, I don't care about the vault and I don't care about my registered account, just pull all of your money out, because that's essentially a run on the bank. You got to remember this, right? If everybody did this right now, there's not enough money in the banks. Like they only hold like 3% liquidity in what they do, right? So if everybody did this, they would be running out of money really quick. And you don't want to be last. It'd be better to be first than last, because if you're last, you don't get anything.
I keep thinking back to a series that I watched last year. It was published in 2019, but it was only up for a couple of months, and they removed it because it was too predictive. It was a series called Years and Years. If you guys think The Simpsons have got a lock on what's coming down the pipe, go and find that series. But at one point in there, it deals with the financial collapse, and there's a lineup of 100 people lined up outside of the bank, and the security guards are beating them off. They want to go into the bank. They want their money out of the bank, and the security guards are beating him off until one guy looks up and says, they've got your money too, right? And the guard's eyes go wide, and he turns around, and he's the one now beating on the bank. And that's unfortunately kind of the storyline that I see coming in for all of the energy that we spend trying to get people to notice. I cannot help but feel that that's coming down the pipe.
It is, and it's not coming down the pipe. It's already here. It's just not here yet. It's already happening, right? So this is already happening in China because the Chinese banks are out of money. Like they have wasted ungodly amounts of money. They've just indebted themselves even more than the U.S. By ratios. That like the China's they're done. They're so screwed. But what's happening in China is the Chinese banks literally refuse to give people their money. Like, oh, where did you get it from? Do you have paper to prove that this is yours? They took the money in, no problem. Even on the same day, they're like, hey, I'm going to put 1,000 yuan in. I want a 2,000 out. They're like, well, what do you need this money for? They're going to like start interviewing you about your money. And somebody did this to me in the past. I lost it on them. Like, I don't have to tell you shit, bro. Give me my money. It's mine. Or we're gonna have problems here. Give me my money. I gave it to you. Give it back, right? But if you know how the system works, they don't have all of that money on hand, right? If you want to
Yeah.
get like $10,000 out of the bank, you got to tell them ahead of time, right? And so this is why I'm telling you now is that you have the ability with gold and silver. You can move that money out of the bank's control because you can do a wire transfer. A wire transfer is easier than pulling out cash out of the bank, right? And once it's in New World Precious Metals or the wholesale program, or just buying gold and silver with it, whatever. Now it's yours. Now you have control over it, right? And nobody else can take it from you, theoretically.
I get so many messages. I'm trying to get my money out of the bank, but they're giving me a hassle every time I go in there, and that's that's an intimidation tactic. They don't want you taking your money out of the bank because now they have to replace their stock because it's not coming back.
Yeah,
And this is what they're absolutely mortally afraid of, because for every dollar that you take out of the bank, that's 10 that they can't leverage for their
exactly,
own profits.
exactly.
And so this is why they are so mortified with people taking their money out of the bank. This is why it's a criminal act in Canada to have more than $10,000 cash in your possession. They will throw you in jail for that. All right, like it's just it's they've captured us through the process of time. They weaponized time, and they're putting us in that position where they're going to make us dependent on the UBI, the
Yeah,
digital ID. If you want to survive, if you don't want to starve to death, you're not going to be able to grow your own food. You're not going to be able to do this, that, or the other thing. That's ultimately where all of this is leading on by their agenda. But I keep coming back to the cure for globalism is localism, and if we
yeah,
can take their fiat currency out of the equation for how we survive, they have nothing to hold over us. I'll trade you, a package of hamburger for 2 pounds of butter. Whatever it takes. This is what having tangible possession, small amounts of gold and silver allows us to do. It buys us the time to say, no, we don't want your UBI, your other garbage, your nonsense. And we only have to do that for a short period of time, and they
yeah,
collapse.
yeah. And that's what it comes down to. Like, I want to drive this point home really hard. This is a war for our survival, right? And I've said this many times before, and I'm probably going to say it a whole bunch of times again, but this is a war for our survival, right? Every aspect of society is under attack. We got social, we got economic, we got physical, we got military. I go on and on and on, right? But one of the things that they're trying to do is make us dependent on them. By seizing our currency, they capture our political system, political parties, blah 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 blah, right? Ultimately, you are still in a local community with local people that you talk to and see every day. If there's people outside of that community that are trying to kick your door in and be like, "Hey, you got to play ball by my rules or else," well, I'll take the or else, bro, because I ain't bowing down to you and ain't giving you my stuff and you ain't taking it from me. So those three things ain't happening, bro. And you have to prepare yourself and you have to prepare your family for a fight. Nobody is going to get out of this unscathed. Nobody. There's not a single person on this planet now that is going to be that they're just going to leave alone. It will not happen, right? And so what that means, if you accept that, and I hope that you do, is that you need to prepare. Whatever that means, buying food, buying protective equipment, buying or preparing with your community, creating community by itself, right? You have to prepare for this, right? And I only push precious metals as a secondary to the most important, which is what keeps you alive. So whatever that means in your community, whoever you think you can work with, please just go organize. And anybody that doesn't represent your community that is supposed to, get rid of them.
I love this comment here from Mort's Girl over on Rumble. Grow microgreens in mason jars. That is exactly the kind
Yeah,
of thinking we need to have. For anybody that's ever been on my website, uh, you'll notice I only have 3 partners, and one of them is how to grow vegetables indoors without getting polluted on or chemtrailed or being controlled or governed and having to ask for a permit or being told by the town or community that no, you cannot grow food. Well, that's why I've got the grow towers on there. That's why I've got gold and silver and New World precious metals on there. And the other stuff that we cannot manufacture, make, or buy is why we've got Patriot Switch on there. These are the only things that I'm focused on, are the things we need to survive outside of their carrot and stick universe that they're creating. So it's the little things that are going to become the value, the things that we overlook right now completely. That's what's going to be the value down the road. I know people that don't smoke, but they've got cartons of cigarettes. Why? Because that's going to be currency.
Yeah. And you can think of it like a jail, right? There is an internal economic system inside jails, like the literally supposed to be the most secure place on the planet, and people are still buying and selling cigarettes and smoking weed and doing drugs and getting stuff in. And like, how does this even happen in a freaking jail? I mean, like these people that think that you're just gonna administrate the weather can't even protect inmates from drugs in a jail. Like, bro, these people are dumb. Like, they're so bad at what they're supposed to do. It's almost comical if it wasn't so destructive.
If it wasn't, yeah, if it wasn't so demoralizing, it would have to be funny because our management, our government, I can't even call them that. They're not government, they're management team, but they couldn't organize a fart fest at a bean festival. Like they literally could not. And these guys are continuing to run around. Oh, we're remodeling with a sledgehammer.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It's just like
Uh,
Freeland. Like Freeland this week come out with some stupid new program, and Danielle Smith, to her credit, was actually eviscerating those idiots for saying all of the stupid things that they're doing. Like, you guys didn't even call us. You guys didn't even look. You guys are just literally trying to buy votes with our money as after you've wasted hundreds of billions of dollars on shit that's not working already. Like the amount of ridiculousness that we've reached is terminal if we don't do something about it. This is why I get so amped about this, right? Because we have the technology, we have the resources, we have the people, we have everything. The only thing we've lost is the people that are making the decisions and the money to make it happen. And they've taken our money, stolen it from us, and used it to destroy our lives. Like, what an absolute absurdity, right? And so, and the ultimate question for me is very simple: what are we going to do about it? It's that simple. What are we going to do about it?
this is great thinking. Exactly that, Carol. You don't know what somebody else didn't is running out of, and it's going to be the simplest of things that people are going to be able to need. And I mean, these things are not be all end alls. These are things that allow us to buy more time to avoid that Venezuela situation that is inevitable if we don't. But before we get out of here, I do want to leave people on a bit of a note of hope. None of this is meant to be doom and gloom. This is
Yeah,
identify and talk about solutions
yeah,
and get connected with like-minded individuals, because I promise you, you are not nearly as alone out there as you think you are. But this I had was part of an amazing conversation today with a fellow named Peter McIsaac, who's fighting very hard over in Nova Scotia. And what they're doing over there, and I'm setting up a show. I'm just waiting to see when we can do this. But I'm very adamant on holding candidates' feet to the fire before the election.
yeah.
None of this. Let them get in, see what they do, and
No,
change
no,
the.
yeah, screw that, man.
That
I'm over that.
is
No, 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 no.
right, and so what they're doing in Nova Scotia is different, and I think it is incredibly brilliant. A lot of people that are out there are aware of the, or they're not aware. Why is there no accountability for politicians? The 1992 Little Child versus the People case that set the precedent that it doesn't matter what your elected official doesn't or doesn't do, your only recourse is to elect somebody else next time. Well, um, every time there's a rule, there's a way to work around rules. Our government is great at it. We are not. But there are some brilliant people that are figuring things out. So, what they're doing in Nova Scotia is they are fielding an entire field of independent candidates that, by sheer volume, will be able to collect at least a minority or force the government into a minority situation. But what they're doing is they're holding the candidates to account beforehand. They are making the candidates say, if you want our support, you are going to sign this contract with
Yeah,
the people that you will be personally held liable if you don't do what we ask you to do. And this is not asking
yep.
these people to commit crimes, but what it is doing, it's putting the accountability and the transparency before the office,
Hmm.
in front of the office. And yes, granted that is a small place, this will be quite effective there. But I think that this is really something that we can literally adopt around the entire freaking country and make this happen before they can change the direction of the party system, because at the end of the day, the party system is dead. That is the root of the problem that we have within our governance system. So without demolishing the system, this is an emergency triage thing that I think every region in Canada has the ability to accomplish, thinking municipal first, because I'll tell you what, going into this year, people are noticing, oh, well, Pierre is saying things because we're complaining. Well, yeah, every one of these guys that wants a seat at the trough has their nose on the political winds, to a micro tuning level. What we are going to do, they will respond to, not yesterday, but right now, because they want the seats, they want the power, they want the office. It's now is our time to break the party system, and Nova Scotia is leading the way on that kind of thinking. And I'm hoping that I can get Peter. He agreed to come on, but hopefully we can do this sooner than later, guys. But this is really what it's all about: is buying ourselves some time, letting the old system die, and rebuilding without it. And that is 100% within our reach and grasp to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'll just add one point to that and leave off with this is that I've really noticed, and one of the things that I really push for political reform is the idea of accountability to our elected officials. There is no reason with our modern technology that we can't have a real time democracy. And if some think of this for a moment, right? At any time, we have the ability to be like, hey, who agrees with me? And you have a phone in front of you, you can be yes or no. Why don't we have a system that was designed that at any time our elected representatives could ask us and say, do you agree with this or not? Yes or no, right? We don't have that system because it's never been designed. They don't want that ability to be like responsible for what they know are their constituents want, right? And the thing that pisses me off the most is all of the people that voted against the voted for the carbon tax, keeping it in. All of those idiots should be replaced because I guarantee you most of their constituents do not agree with that. But there's no confidence vote. There's no confidence vote ability for us as the citizens to be like, hey, if you vote for this, it's a non-confidence vote, and if you vote against us and you know how we're voting and you know what we want and you choose to go the other way, it's an automatic election for you, not the whole country, you, right? And like
100%.
so our constituencies in each constituent each constituency has to have an ability for them to be represented. Jeez, I can't talk. Be represented by the person that has been elected in that constituency. And if there isn't, it's a broken system where they are totally disconnected from their responsibilities and the people that put them there. That is unacceptable anymore. Democracy is supposed to be connected people to people that represent them, and it is not. And we have to change that.
I couldn't agree more. And it's the power to reform the system lies within us.
Yeah.
If we leave it to them, the only reform to the system we're going to get is an extension so everybody can get their pensions, right?
Yeah.
Because
Stupid, bro. Unbelievable, man. It's
right?
disgusting, man. It's so transparently corrupt. It's transparently corrupt. They don't even try to hide it anymore. They're
No.
laughing at us, bro. They literally gave themselves a raise as they took more money out of our pocket on April Fool's Day. Literally saying, "Hey, Canada, you fools, take in your money more, bro."
Well, and on that note, we could go for hours here. I want to,
Yeah.
and my day has been long enough already, guys. It's been a rough week, but some things to pay attention to, guys. The WHO pandemic treaty. Find James Roguski. Get involved in anything that man suggests, because we have got them on the ropes. And if we don't win this one, then all of our nightmares will come true. So
Yeah.
we have them absolutely mortified. Literally, when you think about this, and this is one of my favorite points to make this year. In January in Davos, they had to put the whole world's business on hold. Why? To try and regain the trust and shut us up. Well, they're not doing a very good job at shutting us up, and I don't think they stand a snowball's hope in hell rebuilding the trust. And why are they in such a panic mode, making those their two priorities? Because you're winning.
That's right. Silence is compliance. Take action and be loud about it.
Amen. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us here again tonight. We'll see you same time, same place next Friday. I do have a special event coming up tomorrow, so watch out for that one. And we'll see you all on the flip side, guys. All right. Ciao for now. Stay strong. Stay Canadian. I
Stay
love you
free.
all. Bye for now.